Hey, hello, I'm Michael Naziri, and with me today is Justin Ross Langhout, a giant person who competes in strongman competitions. And on your profile, it says you compete in HW and future WSM. What's that?
Heavyweight and super heavyweight. So it just kind of depends. Like it's pretty simple. Just depending which competition, whether they want to separate them. It always depends on how many competitors actually sign up.
All right. I was thinking it was like maybe two different kind of sports, but
Yeah.
yeah, we have the same thing in powerlifting.
Mhm.
Um, how long ago did you get into to strongman competitions?
Officially 2 years, 2 years. But I've been working out in the gym since seventh grade. I've always just been big for my size, just a big boy. More of the gentle giant than anything. But I was kind of like um, the pudgy kid growing up. I'm actually from the Netherlands, and just it was kind of like a Augustus Gloop from Willy Wonka, just kind of like that Dutch German fat kid kind of thing that loves eating chocolate and whatnot. But I got to the gym seventh grade, just kept it up as much as I could, and it wasn't until 2006 that I started watching World's Strongest Man from the very beginning. And I realized that's something that I can do. I'm taller than a lot of those guys. I was heavier than some of those guys. It is something that I could definitely achieve. And unfortunately, just meeting the right people and having the right gyms and money, I was still a very young kid. This was 2006. I was a sophomore year in high school at that point. Didn't know where to start. And then finally, 2 years ago, World's Strongest Man came to Bradenton, which is the town that I grew up. And I kind of looked at that as being a sign. And at the same time, going to World's Strongest Man, I realized, actually talking to Colin Bryce, who's the tournament director of the whole thing, he told me when I approached him and I asked him, you've never had a Dutchman in a very long time compete at World's Strongest Man, and even though I am American, I was born there, got my dual citizenship. What could I do to compete as a Dutchman, just to kind of separate myself because half the competitors are all American. It'd be nice to just kind of have a different country involved. And when I told him my family's last name, which is Zylstra, um, he actually stopped me and they said, we had a Zylstra that placed third in the 1998 World Strongest Man. That was the same year John Paul Sigmason won. And when I did a little research, I looked him up. The gentleman's from Friesland, which is where my family originated. And I'm like, come on, this is, what are the odds, And I researched him, I looked him up, I talked to my dad, and it turns out he's my third cousin. So
That's
I
awesome.
didn't even know about him. So yeah, so it's kind of in the blood and just went from there.
Like, how would you like describe like strongman? Like powerlifting, like it's pretty easy to explain. Squat, bench, deadlift, three attempts. Like strongman, I think is a little more complicated. I don't know anything about it, but I think it is.
Yes and no. It could be complicated. Other people, I mean, when you really get involved, there's a big level of fun to it. You're just, a lot of times, you're just lifting, at the most part, like random crap just to, just adjust myself here, just to say you can lift it. I mean, powerlifting, and I don't want to say anything that might make some powerlifters, take it things the wrong way. Some people always try to size up, well, who's better, powerlifter, strong lip, strong man, and everything. I mean, I don't do reverse grip for deadlifts very often. I use straps unless it's real lightweight, unless we have a strongman comp that requires that. So there are probably many deadlifters, raw deadlifters, just bare hand reverse grip that can lift a lot more than I can. But you put the straps in my hand and kind of the sky's the limit on that. Strongman, just for me personally, it appeals to just allowing you to get stronger on a day-to-day aspect, daily life. If I'm able to just move the fridge or move the dishwasher a little bit more easily, I don't have to be all geared up and have to squat in a certain way to just do it. I can just pick it up and go.
Yeah. That's I think that's a good explanation. Um,
It's also fun to watch.
yeah,
It gets kind of redundant. I was at a powerlifting competition a few weeks back, just to support some friends, and it's the same thing over and over again.
yeah. Powerlifting for the most part is like you like mostly your spouse and kids and those are that's the
Yeah.
audience.
I mean, when I tell people or I show the video of the this competition, actually the Tampa Bay Classic we had back in October, one of the events was a Hercules hold, but instead of what's commonly giant pillars, we had two Mercedes-Benz vehicles, at least the heavyweights. There was the SUVs on each side of the arms, and we're just holding them for as long as we can. They're going down 20-degree ramps, and just the video of that is just freaking awesome.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do the Atlas stones. Like I wish I knew someone near me that had them, cause like I don't want to make. Well, this is
They're
what
not hard to make.
the form in it is. It looks like to me. I don't want to piss you off, but it looks like someone deadlifting with like bad form a little bit.
It is very different. It is very different. And honestly, there's probably nothing you could say that's going to piss me off. I'm a pretty laid back guy. Yeah, it is very different. You are actually going to use more back than anything. You're more just bending down to pick it up. Now, form, it's relative to the individual. My very first competition was summer 2 years ago. And it was one of the events, it was the final event, was a 320-pound stone. It was my first competition, but because of my size, they wouldn't let me do novice. I had to do heavyweight. So it was a 320-pound stone for reps over I believe, like 48-inch, 52-inch bar. I only had 3 separate times training to lift the stone at my local gym, Gorilla Bench Training Center. And I was taught by one of the owners there of how to lift the stone. Now, he showed me the way he did it, the way he was designed, the way his body was to lift a stone. And that was basically get your ankles almost aligned with the stone directly over it and basically just bend down, grip it, and rip it.
Yeah.
It worked to a certain point. I was able to get up to 280 pounds, I think 290 actually, prior to the competition. I've tried heavier and I couldn't get it off. This was, for me, pure strength. I even went as far as doing the tacky on my arms and everything, and that definitely helps. But it gets to a certain point that if you're not in the right form, it doesn't matter how geared up you are. And so I went into that competition, did very well, actually hurt my chest, pulled my chest a week prior doing 500, it was a 535 pounds, and completely just pulled it, strained it, and I still managed to win at the chest press event.
Wow.
Doing that stone, it was 225 for 37 reps was what I accomplished for that.
How many reps?
37. The guy that came in second was 23, so I completely overdid it.
That's cardio.
Yeah, well, that was one of the events. I've always been a great presser. I'm not the best deadlifter. I'm getting pretty good at squats, but when it comes to pressing, as far as people that I've seen in my state, not many can win. And I'm actually got a couple world record, not world record, state record or maybe national record attempts coming up here in the next few months. But just going back to the stone, I zeroed that event.
Yeah.
My first competition, couldn't get it to even lift it off the ground to 320. Other people who were smaller, older, but maybe had more experience, they were able to do about 5 reps of getting it up. The person that held that competition, her name was Sarah, and she's like, you know what, come to my gym. She had all the equipment there, the same stones. So it's like, let me work on you with those stones. And all she did is she had me widen my stance, which is not common in stone lifting. But with my hip mobility and my height is more from my torso, you need to get your chest to those stones, especially the heavier ones. And if you're not able to get your chest to it, you can't actually bear hug it. And then you're just relying on hands and forearms as far as touching. So once she had me wide in my stance, and I'm talking about really wide, almost like sumo deadlift wide, and allowed me to really get down low, I bear hugged it. That 320 stone came up like nothing. It was actually even easier than 290. week later, I came back and I got her 360 stone up.
I
So
think
it's all about form.
the most impressive thing in that story is you were able to take advice from a woman.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hey, I'm not that kind of person, man, that backs off of any advice. If it doesn't work for me, it doesn't work for me. I've had one of my really good friends, Mina Makram. He's actually one of the #1 deadlifters in the world. Actually, he won the Vegas competition 2 years ago, 972-pound deadlift raw, and hell, we're actually going to dinner tonight. He's one of my good friends, and he showed me some tricks of the way he does things, but sometimes they're not ideal for me. He knows that. He does sumo most of the time. I do conventional because there's no sumo in strongman. But some tricks that he's given me recently work, some don't. But yeah, from a woman, I mean, Sarah, she's been competing. She actually won, or at least competed at the amateur Arnold Classic a few years back. So this woman has a lot of experience compared to I do. So I would be a fool not to at least take it or consider it.
My wife's been she's competing like a year more than I have. She's been competing for since I don't know, before 2001, and we met in college on the powerlifting team that they had.
Yeah.
And it was one time I was training for a competition. I think she was pregnant at the time. She comes down to the basement. She goes, "Yo, you're a little above parallel." And I'm like, "I know what parallel. I know what depth is. I know what I'm doing. Yeah, you know." And I bombed out of that meet.
Yeah. I mean, experience is experience. Now, strongman is more than anything. You can be the strongest there, but if you don't know how to manipulate your body around the weight or vice versa, if you don't have the right gear, if you don't have that right technique, it really doesn't matter how strong you truly are. It might help you in certain static events for a short period of time, but the people that take the time, practice, understand their body composition, and applies it to implement whatever event they got going on, those are the ones you got to watch out for. They're the ones that are going to win. And I've had people 100 pounds, 150 pounds lighter than me outdo me on like the yoke walk for the amount of, not necessarily the weight, but maybe they're just a lot faster than I am. Technique's a big thing. And I've definitely learned a lot in 2 years. And I'm getting to the point where now I'm providing my expertise and my knowledge to the younger or the novice or pretty much anybody that asks.
I think you said you didn't get like one of the stones up at one of the competitions. So are you done in the competition because you couldn't get the stone up, or you can keep going?
So basically you zero an event, it doesn't end you on the competition. It's all based on the point system, and the amount of points has to do with how many competitors there are. So if there's 5 competitors, then the most points you'll win in that event is 5. And then if you win the second event, okay, well, you can win another 5, now you get 10. But if you win the first event, but then you came last in the second event, you'll get 1. As long as you move it. If it's a moving event, say a yoke carry, let's say it was too heavy, but I did move it an inch, I'll get a foot. I'm sorry, I'll get a point.
Yeah.
If I didn't budget at all, then I zero because I didn't even complete, or I didn't get 1 rep in something, depending what the event is. So in that stone, it didn't come up at all over the bar. Over the bar is 1 rep. I zeroed that.
How would you describe the community of strongmen? Like, let's say like somebody like me, like my first time I want to go out there and I don't do that great. Are people going to be like, look at this idiot, why did he come? Or are they going to be like, look, listen, you can do this to get better, you know?
You will be shunned and blackballed for life.
Really? That's
that is the one thing truly that I truly love about strongman. Now I've only powerlifted in high school. I've been to many powerlifting competitions. I got plenty of friends that are bodybuilders. The egos are through the roof when it comes to that, and the name calling, and I mean some serious name calling, and it's outside of just gym banter, is pretty bad. Just from what I've seen in those sports, it's like the gyms really compete against each other. Strongman, it rarely happens. I mean, people that are at the point of competition, we know the dedication, the amount of training involved, because you're not just doing simple bench squat deadlift
Right.
or bodybuilding where it's all just about how you look. It really doesn't matter if you're strong or not. It's just about how you look. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of time to build up all the little muscle fibers, all the main muscle groups, to not just lift one thing, but to lift almost anything that's thrown at you, and to be able to just pick it up and run with it. So it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of strength. And just like I zeroed an event, I had somebody that I've maybe only communicated on Facebook or Messenger a few times come to me and say, hey, let me help you out. She didn't charge me anything. Just come to my gym at the time that I'm there and we'll train you. And I've done the same thing. I brought friends to my gyms and I've worked out with them. I've worked with them. And honestly, having somebody to work out with does make my workouts even better. The camaraderie, I don't think there is any sport that is like strongman when it comes to that. We're all there to help each other out. One of my good friends, Tom, he's going to be competing with me in the competition this Saturday. And even though in the mode of competition, yeah, I want to win, and he of course wants to win, and we might say it's like, hey, you know, you're not going to do it, man. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to beat you now. You're not going to win. I'm going to win. But yet, and in the moment of him competing, unless we're actually competing at the same exact time, I'm cheering him on, telling him, keep going, go any further, and it's going to be vice versa. And if he were to collapse or I was going to collapse, you better believe it's always a fellow competitor, not even the health professionals. The fellow competitor is always the first one there to take your belt off, to take your straps off, to make sure you're okay, because we know. And we're the ones that are watching every little thing, mainly because we want to make sure that this person, you know, is somebody I can beat, but we want to make sure it's being safe. So it's always the competitors that are watching the closest, and they're the first there to help you out when you need it.
I'm glad I talked to you because you know it's an intimidating sport. You know,
it can be, but there's a
giant guy. You know what I mean? I don't think anything intimidates you. You know what I mean? I weigh 180 pounds. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, for somebody like me, it's like, should I go out there with those big guys? You know, but talking to you, I think I'm going to definitely try it one day.
Absolutely, man. I encourage it. There are plenty of competitions. You said you were in New York, right?
Yeah.
I was going to do this. It was prior to COVID. It got shut down, obviously. They have New York Strongest Man, and my wife being from Long Island, actually, that is a competition I do plan on competing at. And with exception of national level competitions, almost everyone has a novice. And so I would encourage, you know, doing that one of these days.
When in Long Island? What's the date?
Oh, I don't know when. I don't know when it is. I mean, I think New York is pretty strict right now. The last time when they did it, this was like February when the competition was going to be held. So as far as I will assume, it's going to most likely be probably February of next year before they even do it again. I don't know. It wasn't in Long Island, but it was in New York State somewhere.
Yeah, I'm only an hour from New York City. You know, if I can get to Long Island in an hour and 15 minutes, I definitely would like to go and see that.
Yeah.
How do you schedule in work your lifting in with work and life? How do you squeeze it in?
It kind of adjusts itself on a weekly basis. I have an 8-year-old daughter. I have a 21-month-old daughter who she doesn't go to a daycare or anything right now. So I have her during the day. My wife, well, when she comes home, my wife works during the day. I work at night, and then I get my sleep in between. When my wife comes, or when I come home from work in the morning, I try to sleep for a few hours until my little one wakes me up, and then I watch her throughout the day. I have at least 2 gyms that I go to, sometimes as much as 4, depending on what events or what type of training I'm looking at. But almost every day, I'm still at my main local run-of-the-mill LA Fitness kind of gym. It's called Amped Fitness. A little bit more hardcore. You can kind of get away with a little bit more stuff there. They have a daycare. So there's 2 times a day I can go. It's either morning or afternoon. I can bring my little ones there and and I can have 2, 3 hour workout without having to worry about them. If I have to do some strongman stuff, she's still too young for me to take her to that gym, even though they allow kids. So I try to work with some family members to just watch them so I can get a workout in if I need to do some specific training that I can't do at the other gym. It gets tough. Sometimes I do end up having to just miss a day. But I always just kind of continue where I left off. Thankfully, I've been pretty lucky not having to miss too much to where I couldn't just come back from it.
Working nights is tough. When I used to work midnights, like if you couldn't sleep that much, I couldn't sleep 8 hours or 6 hours after doing a midnight. It was always like
Yeah.
5. You turn into like zombie mode. I don't know about you. Working nights is brutal.
It takes some getting used to. I mean, after about honestly 2 weeks, it just becomes like anything else.
That's what everyone told me that worked midnights. For me, I just never got used to it. It was always rough for me.
Yeah.
You're training. Are you doing squats, benches, deadlifts? Are you doing some of the power moves?
Yeah. I may not do them in like powerlifting form. Like again, my deadlifts. Yeah, I'm obviously using straps. I'm always conventional. Squat, I can't get behind a normal barbell unless it's a Texas bar. You know, the 55-pound one is a lot wider. If I were to try to get behind a normal barbell, then it's all the way on the very edges. My fear with that is that's always where the barbell is placed on the rack, and so I would hate to just cut my finger or pinch it. I've seen it happen. What's that?
You need those racks that collapse in.
Yeah. I mean, there's different kinds and everything, but it's just not comfortable for me. So I use a safety squat bar.
Yeah.
I love it. I actually went from a cheap one to one that's a little bit more old school, a little bit more expensive, a 65-pound one. And it's amazing the quality of the bar that actually gave me a 70-pound PR in one day. And yeah, that's what I use for my squats. Benching is about the same.
I kind of had this opinion for a little bit, but after I spoke with this guy, Pat Susko, he was like, he squatted 925 back in like 1991, I think, which was like in 1991 was crazy. It was a single ply suit, it's a big deal. And he's 69 years old, and he's still 69. He's squatting close to 700 pounds, for reps. He doesn't do anything for single reps anymore. He's doing near 700 for like 12 reps. But he only uses a safety bar. He only benches with the neutral bar. And his advice is, unless you're a power lifter, he was like, there's no need to bench with the straight bar and put all that stress on your shoulder. He was like, wow. He was like, I can't see why you would do it. He was like, and I kind of agree with him a little bit. And same thing with the safety bar, like it's so much less damaging. I mean, you're so much less likely to get hurt, I think, with the safety bar.
Absolutely. I am so much more stable. Again, my height comes primarily from my torso, so it's easier for me to bend forward more. If you look at some of my early videos on Instagram, there's one video where I made a 715 attempt, and I just didn't get it because I just leaned so far forward. It came up so fast. I was right at my knees, but I just leaned so far forward. It's hard to adjust from that. Now I actually wear my belt almost up to my chest, and that has fixed that problem. Mina, the guy I mentioned earlier, he's the one that showed me that. It felt weird as beyond all reason, but God damn it, it works. As far as the benching, I don't feel that strain. Go ahead.
How do you get the belt up that high?
Just put it on, strap it.
Up here?
It's the bottom of the belt's like right below the nipple line. So it's not on the chest, but it's like right below the nipple line.
Well, so the top of the belt is below your nipple line.
Yes. Did I say bottom? Yes. Yeah. Top of the belt is below the nipple line. Sorry. I'm bending from the top part of my back, and by doing that, then I'm straining by the lower, and by fixing that, it allows me to really chest out and keep that while I'm doing my lift, and it's taking my whole back out of the equation at that point, other than the final lockout. And it was a revelation. This was actually about 2 weeks ago. He just told me to do that, and I'm looking at him, and he's kind of helping me put it on, and I'm just kind of giving him the look, and I'm making sure nobody else is like looking at me. And it's like, oh, this is kind of embarrassing the way this looks. But again, it worked, and I did a 725 for reps on a 14-inch deadlift, and well, there you go.
All right. Do you have a video of that on your Instagram?
I have the first a 1 rep attempt of the 725. Yeah, it is on my Instagram.
You'll be super. I would be super appreciative if you could just have a video of you just showing how to where you put that belt on up on your chest.
If you want to give me a second, I'll actually go get the belt right now and show you.
Yeah, definitely.
Like other Zoom meetings, I am actually wearing pants.
Okay. All right, we're waiting for a strongman to go get his belt and show how he does not bend over in the squat anymore, which I'm super excited to see because I have the same problem of my upper back rounding that he has. All right, I'm super amped to see this.
All right, I'm back. Notice all my kids' toys they got back here. So for me, like the normal position, about right here.
Yeah.
See?
That doesn't hurt your ribs?
No, it does not. And what's nice, it still allows me to breathe better, actually, especially when I'm doing my lifts. I might have it a little higher on the back.
Yeah.
But it's just easier to have somebody else there.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I've never seen anyone do that.
And it just really puts me in the right position, just to get it up. It prevents me from like slouching over.
That's a material belt, right?
Yeah, it's a chic.
You think you'd be able to do that in like a 10 millimeter like thick like hard belt?
I bet I could. The only problem with that, it'd probably be a lot more uncomfortable because you got the rigidness of it. It's going to be jamming up into me.
Yeah.
I have one of those belts. It just never felt comfortable enough. Honestly, it was just painful practically. But I know it can be done. I mean, it just depends. So, but for me, I just got this extra layer of goodness around me, and it just ends up getting pinched a lot.
Yeah, sure. For me, after a heavy deadlift, I'll have bruises, little bruises over here from the belt.
The biggest thing is when I started deadlifts maybe a few years ago, like I would do my set, put my new weight on, just go right back into it and not really rest properly in between. And I would notice I would have severe lower back pain and it would be very uncomfortable. Then I learned I just need to sit. I sit down, let whatever pain I have subside, sometimes just take 2 or 3 minutes and I go right back and I would be a lot more comfortable, feel a lot more stronger when I do my lifts. Since now these last few weeks of doing with this belt, I have no back pain. I have no back pain. As long as I'm making sure that I'm using the proper form with that belt, I have no back pain in between. And that's a huge, huge positivity for me.
I'm definitely going to try that.
Yeah, there was one professional powerlifter strongman. He's on YouTube. Honestly, just type in wearing a belt higher, and he popped up. I don't remember his name. I think his last name's Lehman. Lehman, I believe, was his last name. I'm not going to speculate on that, but yeah, there was a powerlifter that did it, and he actually explained really well the benefits of it. And it's true. I breathe easier.
What's your view on steroids? And I just like to know if it's different than like maybe I know most powerlifters all have the same view. I'm interested to see in strongman if it's a little different.
Um, a world-renowned study basically showed that 86% of all professional athletes have admitted to using performance enhancers at one point or another in their career. That's the world that we live in. Marijuana is almost going to be fully legal here soon, and what else is going to be legal here? And eventually, I think steroids is just going to be part of daily life here in recent future. Especially if they start kind of cleaning them up a little bit. Steroids to me is like anything else, man. Moderation, do it right. If you're going to be like some people who are going to eat a bunch of crap, not really care about your diet, don't really exercise properly, and maybe it's just all lifting heavy weights and whatnot, and just say, yeah, the steroids make me look like this, I can eat whatever I want. You're asking for it. You're asking for it.
Friday, I'm going to post a podcast. I talked to this pastor. He's out in Ohio. He's just a monster. He's just huge guy. And he's a youth pastor too at the church. He just looks like such a scary guy. And he was talking about steroids, and he was counseling some couples in their 20s, and the guys, they went sterile from just way, from what his opinion was that they were too young, and they were abusing it. And
oh, that's another thing too. But when you're young, you're stupid, like all of us.
yeah.
There comes a certain point where, I would say I wouldn't have really touched that until maybe at least 25. Other people would say 30, 35. I mean, that's when the need, you were technically at your strongest mid to late 30s. That's really a peak of what your potential strength can be. And I'm just starting in that. Now, for me, the steroids wasn't really about gaining strength. For me, it was more just about the recovery aspect. And I'll tell you, I'm on testosterone, Ethernate, and DECA. The DECA is more for the joint lubrication, and the testosterone is for the recovery. Yes, I do gain a strength aspect of that. I think maybe it's more of a confidence thing, a little bit more mental. In the end, though, I eat healthy. I take it properly. Everything's sterilized before I use it. I warm it up. I warm up the vials. They are pharmaceutical grade. It's not something that I just cooked up in my kitchen. I am taking it right, and I get myself monitored and tested fairly often, so I know where I stand. If I feel like there's a little bit of the numbers aren't where I need to be, let's say with my liver and my kidneys or anything like that, I'll dial it back down. And once they're back to normal levels, I'll kind of, just do it the right way. Just like anything else. You can abuse alcohol, you can abuse marijuana, you can eat too much broccoli, it can still hurt you.
So what are the average like testosterone levels for guys? What do they say? It's like 200 to 900.
Honestly, I really don't know the exact numbers to that, but yeah. What I hear is about like 350 to 400 a lot. That's the number I hear most often. Average, when you start getting into 900 and higher, you're talking, and again, I don't want to piss somebody off or anything, but this is the hardcore bodybuilders.
Yeah.
That they're going to take 3 or 4 cc's a week, maybe not all at once, but in that week's time. I'm just 1 cc every 3 days, so 2 cc's a week, give or take. And there's really no negative side effects that I have felt. Now, I'm not always consistent. I'm not going to take it if I'm not having a competition within at least a month. If it's far out, I'm just going to work on just the gym and everything, eat healthy. And then when I'm about 2-3 weeks prior to the competition, then I'll kind of start getting back on it. And that's when you're going to feel that peak at that moment. I'm not at the age where I feel like I need to keep going. And as far as the sterile, I don't have that issue, at least not right now. My wife and I do plan on trying for another kid here in a few months.
You train abs?
That's the one thing I do every day. It may not look like it, but every single day I kind of follow the P90X actually a little bit on that, more so of just the 10 reps, 10 sets, 10 reps, each a different exercise. I am getting to the point where it's become way too easy. So now I just do 20 reps of every exercise, but I change the exercises every single day. And core is the most important thing in strongman. You don't have a proper core, you ain't deadlifting. You're not going to squat like you need to. You're not going to do any type of overhead press and have the stability to do it, especially when it comes to axle and log, if you don't have a strong core.
Are there strongman like polyester suits that you wear, like in powerlifting, or?
Um, I mean, I'm sure there is, but honestly, if I really think about it, most competitions I see, it's more of the shorts. There'll be like a neoprene shorts is very common that I see. But as far as tops, it's mostly shirts. They'll wear their ply shirts if they need to for certain deadlifts, because we get the world's strongest man, they're pretty much allowed at that point.
Like powerlifting is so fragmented. Like you got raw, you got raw classic, you got single ply polyester, then you got like canvas suits, whatever. Then you got then you have what's inside all those. Then you have drug tested, and then you have all those that could be non-drug tested. So now up to like 8 different. It's really 8 different sports. Like it's powerlifting. That's why it's not in the Olympics.
No, and to that extent, I mean that's what separates the Olympic lifting, which I think is to its own right a lot more impressive. But yeah, it is. Strongman itself will probably never be Olympic sport, just for the fact that there is such a thing as natural strongman. There are competitions for natural strongman. I don't know any of them, and most people never heard of them because they're not as impressive.
Yeah, anything that's viewed that just has a connotation of being a drug sport, like strongman and powerlifting, which I really don't think it's this. I mean, the '80s really and '90s more. It was more of a drug sport. I think it became more of a drug-free sport. I think now it's really a lot of organizations are really strict about testing. But
for now, I mean, I think eventually it's kind of like inevitable. It people are so much stronger and so much athletic than 30 years ago, 50, 100 years ago. The evolution of athletics in humans are constantly being tested to new bounds and whatnot. And I mean, eventually, I think performance enhancers are going to play a part in that. At the same time, I mean, is there really a sport these days that, again, that doesn't have steroids involved? I mean, how much can that really be tested? I mean, when you get to Olympics for right now, sure, but you talk about other World Series, the Super Bowl. I mean, how many of those?
But you know what? I mean, everything can be tainted by it, because if you were using steroids for 5 years and stopped for a while but kept training, I mean, that's going to carry over.
It will to a point.
Yeah, to a point.
It will to a point. You are. It's allowing you to build that muscle easier, with less strain and faster recovery. It's not like you stop taking, now you're just going to go back to where you were 5 years ago. Absolutely not. It's. I look at it, if anything, it's to help you get over that hurdle.
Yeah.
And then you got to fill in that gap with the proper training. So I've had times where when I did an overhead press, it was on an axle bar, and I think I was stuck at 355. And I've tried 3 or 4 attempts, and I just couldn't get it. I ended up getting a new round of steroids and took it. And about a week and a half later, with continuing my training, I went to 385, and it felt great. And I kept on going. Now my overhead press is 425 pounds for almost 2. That was actually fairly recently. And but I haven't actually been on anything in the last several weeks.
Yeah.
And I still have hit 425 again, and actually it felt easier the second time.
All right.
Uh,
You mentioned Olympic lifting, and you said, I think you said it was impressive, and you know, I think that Olympic lifting is different than the sport of powerlifting.
Absolutely.
Then, well, it's different. I mean, well, one is speed and agility, and you know, powerlifting is just is power. It's a lot less. Um, I would say that you can take almost anyone off the street, bring them in, and train them for powerlifting, and they'll get stronger and they'll get better and they'll get pretty good. And they might not become a world class powerlifter, but they can get pretty good. You can't do that with Olympic lifting. Like someone to be an Olympic lifter, they need to have explosive speed.
Yeah.
They need to have
Can be taught though. That could be taught.
plyometrics and stuff. You think?
Absolutely. Anybody could be explosive. I mean, I actually used to be a lot more explosive until I kind of ballooned up in the size I am. Now I have to compensate for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I believe that could be trained. But with Olympic lifting, the one thing that can't be taught is the amount of confidence and bravery you need to have.
Yeah.
I mean, not saying that accidents and margin for error can't happen in powerlifting. Yeah, people have pulled their chest, in bench. People have pulled their hamstrings and back and deadlift and squats and have had broken legs and stuff. But in powerlifting, power snatch, you're talking sometimes 300-400 pounds just hurling over your head and managing to literally catch it and hold it there. And same thing with clean and jerk. I think 700 is around the world record for that. And I can't imagine, there's so much room for error. And if you don't have that level of confidence, if you go in there thinking, "Ooh, I don't know if I'm going to get this today," you're walking away with something broken.
Yeah,
that can't be taught.
Like before I started this podcast thing, and I always thought that Olympic lifting you'd be less likely to get injured because you were moving less weight. You know what I mean? Like there was no one moving over 1,000 pounds in Olympic lifting, so I figured it's less weight, less likely to get injured. But I spoke with some Olympic lifters, coaches, and they were like, no. They were like, no. They were like, it's not the same thing. They're like, yeah, we're picking 300 pounds off the floor, but it's not like doing a 300-pound deadlift. It's you're moving around that bar and it's getting slammed into your body, and so I never really thought of it that much,
Well, look at their physique. If you take a power lifter and a strongman and you look at how they are built, they're thick, they're wide, very dense. A lot of Olympic lifters, they're very thin and very, very fit, but on the smaller side in every way, shape, or form, which allows for that explosiveness to get it up. But then you've got to talk about like in when you start comparing someone so much smaller with that much weight, I could, if you put that same 400 pounds in that snatch in my hands, I can hold that thing all day long. They probably can't. They're going to hold it for that second that they needed to, but any longer, they run risk of like something snapping, their arm bending the wrong direction. So it's the size that they are, it allows them for that explosiveness. But I think that being able to truly handle the weight statically they wouldn't be able to. So it's just completely different animal.
And powerlifting, I've seen it happen. Some of these things have happened to me. Pooping yourself, peeing, vomiting, bloody noses. Which ones happened to you?
In competition, none, but that is a fear. And I am very specific about what I eat and what I don't eat prior to a competition.
Yep.
I will not have a protein drink, which during the day, during a regular training, yes, I will, but I will allow some time between that and my actual workout. But in competition time, because your nerves are shattering, and when your nerves are going, you tend to actually become a little bit more loose down there. So I will not have anything that's going to ruin that for me. You never want to be known as that guy.
Yeah, well, so yeah. So part of like my pre-workout like is also Imodium. Like
Yeah.
I know how much Imodium I got to take with how much pre-workout I got to take.
Right.
I definitely have. I have that all calculated and figured out. But in powerlifting, well, in powerlifting, the girls have a problem with peeing. In strong, do you see the girls have that problem with the strongman competitions?
I'm sure. I'm sure. I mean, they're still deadlifting, whether they use straps or reverse grip, they're still deadlifting as much, if not more, than powerlifters, and they're putting the same amount of strain. When I go to powerlifting competitions and it happens to be females doing deadlift or squats, everybody's looking at her. I'm looking at the floor. I'm waiting to see that puddle, you know. And I sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. It's hilarious, but you know, at the same time, that means that person's like, I'm going to do what I need to do to lift. You know, if I'm going to embarrass myself for 15 minutes, so be it.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a certain level of respect to that. That's why I always bring extra underwear to my competitions, just in case.
Yeah, you have to. You've been around lifting for a while. What's the dumbest thing you've seen in the gym?
The dumbest thing. I mean, I've seen a lot. I wouldn't say anything that's like, oh my God, you know, what are you doing? Like you see on some of these videos on YouTube kind of stuff. But for me, I know what works, and I feel like I've been around doing this long enough that I know so many better ways to how to do certain exercises. And one particularly for me that I try to give my 2 cents to anybody who wants to take it, when people do skull crushers, for example. So they do skull crushers, they come down and they, you know, almost want to get the bridge of their nose. The problem when they're doing that, if you look at that when they're coming down, they're actually rotating down on their shoulder in order to, I got somebody at the door. Give me 1 second. You're doing rotation from their shoulder. I like to try to isolate as much as possible. So I explained to them, I said, hey, bring your arms further back, 45 degrees, come behind, straight up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they tend to have to go lighter in weight in order to do it properly. And you're just building up your triceps so much. And surprisingly, most people actually take my advice. It's always the high schoolers that don't. They just think I'm bothering them, whatever. I'm like, yeah, you know, my arms are only bigger than your legs. You know, what do I know? But, yeah, but that's one of the common things I see because, again, some people do too much weight, and if that weight falls right on your head, I get it. That's why they call it skull crushers. It's just something I see.
I've just learned that unless someone asks for your advice, like they're not going to listen. It doesn't matter if, I mean, you could be like the size of you like just looking like a monster, or you could have people could know you've won just a million awards and you're just like, you know, the best 181 lifter in the world. You know, they're just not going to listen unless they're ready to ask. You know, that's what I've noticed.
And I've been more attuned to that. I mean, last time I've even mentioned anybody about that specifically, it's probably been a year or so.
Yeah.
The other thing I see, this more annoys me than anything. I wouldn't necessarily say it's stupid, but it could be. Is basically seeing somebody all of a sudden take up more than one machine, and when I'm saying more than one, I'm talking about like 3 or 4. And they might do, I call them 1 rep wonders, and they just do 1 rep and they wander around the gym. And then they come back and they'll do something on the other thing. And then they're wearing like so much clothes to try to burn whatever fat they have or water weight. And you know, and I'm trying to look at this person. I'm like, okay, is this person a bodybuilder? Are they trying to cut for content? But then they eventually take their jacket off or sweater and like, no, they're not. You can just tell they're not. and and then like they're listening to music and then looking in the mirror and just like, yeah, you talking to me, whatever. And I'm like, there's nobody around. Who are you talking to? They're a whole character themselves, and it's borderline entertaining to watch. But again, now they're taking a bunch of stuff, and this one guy particularly, this was a month ago. I set myself up to do strict curls, and which is one of my strongest attributes. And he just comes, and my stuff was on the bench. It was right there. Okay, it wasn't on the bench, but it's all around the bench. And the bar was there, and I had plates all over there. He just comes over and takes the bar. It was the only one in the gym, and he takes the bar. And I'm not a very, like, I'll confront somebody, but I try not to make a big deal out of something. And there were other exercises I could do in the meantime. So, I'm like, all right, he's probably just going to do a couple sets.
Oh, I had to do that in my own house, on my own squat racks, on someone on our team.
Yeah.
The gray squat rack here and the white, I put extra squat racks because, my wife's got friends, and there were people from the church that wanted to lift. And when I squat, I put like my plates. Like I had like two 45s, a 25, 2 10s, a 5. I had my change. It's everything I needed. This way I don't have to go around and get my stuff. And I have plenty of other weights. There's the whole stack over there, the whole stack over there. Comes and grabs one of my 25s. What are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm just gonna borrow it. I'll bring it back. I'm like, no, don't touch my weights. There's weights literally, like the gray squat rack on the floor, and then there's one right there. There's one right over. And she started to walk away with it. I was like, oh, turn around and put it back. And she was like, I'm not joking. And she put it back. I don't think she really listens to all my podcasts, but.
I mean, this guy particularly, I would watch him, and he'll do skull crushers basically. And he would do like 1-2 reps, and then he'll put it down. And then he'll like put a 10 on, do a rep, and take a 10 off, do a rep, put a 10 on, do a rep. It got to a point where like, okay, this guy is just, he's like hogging it at this point. Now, I'm kind of guilty sometimes doing that myself. If I'm on the bench press, I might actually be on that one bench for an hour, but there are also 6 other bench presses on the floor. Eventually, I ended up walking up to him and I said, hey, and I kind of gave him a look because he did take it from me, but, I'm not going to ruin his day. I said, how much more do you got? And he's like, just one more. I'm like, okay. So I'm just kind of standing off to the side. I'm like waiting for this one more. And then sure enough, he brings the bar back over, but he didn't take any plates off. It was all plates that I wasn't going to use, like a bunch of 5s and 2.5s and stuff. Like I have 4 45s that I plan on putting on this bar. And so like now I'm taking all his plates off. I have to go find where they were at and all this stuff, but I try to be the bigger person, not always just physically.
Yeah. I had a disagreement with my sister-in-law over this too. The whole family's in powerlifting. Everyone's just getting into it. So my sister-in-law, she's actually gotten really good, Haley Jo Kenny, and my wife is really good too. Actually, I'll send you my wife's Instagram thing. My wife's
Sure.
I'm not a good powerlifter. I've been in the sport for a long time, but she's really good. But anyway, so my sister-in-law and her boyfriend are at a public gym, and they're using 2 different bench presses. And someone comes over, and it's like, yo, can you guys like share the same bench, like so someone else can bench? And they were like, no, we're both paying members. We both use a bench. I was like, Haley Jo, no, you're wrong. I was like, why can't you share the bench with your boyfriend? Like, let someone else bench. She's, no, we're both paying custom. Whatever. I don't know. I think that they should have shared a bench. Your boyfriend and girlfriend, right? What do you think?
If all other benches like were taken, I would say it's kind of depending on what their workout styles are. If they're just there for just physical fitness and, just being healthy and whatnot, and doing something together, then absolutely. If he's competing for something,
He wasn't.
oh, then I would say, yeah. Then if she's competing for something, it's kind of a mental thing. If you start taking too much of a break in between your sets, because now you got to take off the weights and put it back on, and sometimes that's the workout within itself, especially when you start playing with big boy stuff. I hate doing the leg press because it takes me 45 minutes just to find all the place to put on the damn thing, and have to take them back off again. I'm doing multiple sets with different weights, and yeah, I prefer having my own. I definitely enjoy having somebody if they're within the same realm of the weights that I'm using. But if I'm benching 500 and this guy is benching most 225, I'm not really going to enjoy that.
All right. So most important question: how bad do you hate CrossFit?
I honestly, I don't. It's not for me. I'm not a bunny rabbit to keep jumping up and down and doing some of the things that they do. It's very impressive, and I will enjoy watching it. I am definitely not someone that says I hate it. It's just not for me. I don't knock anybody that enjoys hurling, but I will not do it myself.
You're obviously a nice guy.
Physical, you know what? Anybody that does any form of physical fitness, doesn't matter what it is, and if it's just a way to better yourself and it's what you enjoy, I will have all the respect for you for doing that. It doesn't matter what that vice is.
Olympic coaches have told me, and some other gyms, powerlifting gyms, that CrossFit is the best thing that's ever happened to them, because they're just getting athletes left and right that have left CrossFit. For whatever reason, it's just not like, it's not intimidating to people to start with.
Well, if you look at it, they are just, it's like they look like bodybuilders, but then they're very fit and strong and they can move themselves really well. And probably it would be something I would consider doing once once I reach my peak in strongman, whether it's world's strongest man, whether it's national or state level, whatever it might be, and I would do that just to maintain a healthy fitness level. I would always still like to be as strong as I can. I enjoy the fact that almost any gym I ever walk into, I am one of the strongest people. And if I'm not, I will definitely befriend that person as much as I can. Figure out what makes them tick. But yeah.
Who's the guy that does the announcing on the World's Strongest Man? Magnuson?
No, that's actually there's two guys. There's one of the most common is actually Colin Bryce himself. He will do a lot of the commentating.
What's his name?
Colin Bryce.
No, not that guy. I know this guy.
Are you talking about the Englishman, the bald guy, Englishman?
What was his name? I know one of these guys that was involved in it.
Bill Kazmaier. Bill Kazmaier was.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the guy.
Yeah, he hasn't actually done it as far as World's Strongest Man. I noticed he didn't do it too much this past 2 years. I don't know if it's just years or not.
I knew the name, right? Because I interviewed this guy, Dr. Broom. He's out in Utah. He's actually used to be a police officer. He retired from that, and then he became an EMS worker, became like the phys ed coach for like EMS, and then he retired from that, and then became a psychologist. And I mean, all throughout this, he was powerlifting. I mean, it's just, I can't imagine retraining your brain for all those things. Incredible. And apparently,
can we pause for a sec?
Sure.
Yeah.
No problem. I just paused it, so it'll just.
Yeah. Editing.
Yeah. So Kazmaier knows him. So he listened to the podcast and he commented on the podcast. I saw his name. I was like, oh snap! I was like, he listened to my podcast. I thought it was the coolest thing.
I got an opportunity to just briefly meet him at the World's Strongest Man 2019. Maybe it wasn't the best time. I It was, oh, dude, it was hot, man. It was really freaking hot, and I think it was getting to him. And so I actually left. I was there all 4 days, and I was there from like 5:30 in the morning until it was over. True diehard fan. Again, that was the year I found out about my cousin. Ruth Zelstra is his name, by the way. And so it was the last day. I went to actually go to my car to go grab an umbrella. I didn't have anything to really cover my head. It was just getting so hot. As I was walking, I saw Eddie Hall just walking by. I asked him for a picture and got a picture with him. Got to talk to him for a few minutes. And as I turned around the corner, I had my umbrella in hand. All of a sudden, I see Bill Kazmaier. He's one of the few people left I hadn't get a chance to meet. And he just got done taking a photo with somebody. And when I probably should approach me a little differently, but I just kind of sounded like a fan. And I said, "Hey, Kaz, can I get a selfie?" He's walking away and he just stops. He looks to who was a buddy of his or somebody he was with. He's like, "This fucking sucks." He turns around and you can actually go on my Instagram. I did post a photo. It's fairly early. It's like one of the earlier posts. And I'm smiling and he's just not really having it. Or maybe it was the beginning of one. What?
That's the one I'm going to use. I'll find that one and use that one when I'm like, oh, my episode so-and-so.
Yeah.
Picture with you and him.
Yeah, it was, I think it was very hot. And I know he is a old school individual. Actually, one of my friends, I haven't seen him in a while, but much older guy. He's actually maybe about the same age as Kazmaier. He used to compete in powerlifting with him. And as we were there that year, he came with me and he actually had a pamphlet that had Bill Kazmaier and his name written on the pamphlet about what the weights that they were going to do. And he was able to show Kazmaier, and Kaz was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe somebody remembers me from this." This was from, God, this had to be from like 60s, 70s, well, not 70s, I think. And they got him to sign it and everything. And so that was actually pretty cool to kind of see a little nostalgic version from him. I had a friend also that actually ended up working at the official Strongman Games later that year as a volunteer. And he said he got to sit with Kazmaier and everything. And they were indoors, AC, sitting down. And he said he was as pleasant as can be. So I think I just ended up catching him at the wrong time.
In training, do you use chains and bands at all?
I don't actually, and I feel like I should. Chains are not a very common thing at most gyms. You have to go to those real mom and pop places to have them.
Easy for me. I'm in my house. Yeah.
Yeah. Gorilla Bench, they have them. I could use them. I do have a great set of bands. I use them more for stretches. I don't really put them on my weights and stuff. I probably should. I just haven't built up a habit of doing that. As long as I've been lifting and as much experience as I have, I'm still learning new things, man. I'm always willing to try whatever works. I just don't feel the need that I have to incorporate that. I haven't experienced what the benefit of that would be, but I can see it.
If you're someone who gets out of the hole in the squat, or if you break ground in your deadlift and you get stuck near your knees and that's where you don't finish the lift, then bands and chains is all for you.
Actually, for me, it's the opposite. If the deadlift is coming off the ground, 95% of the time, I'll get it all the way up. Same thing with squat.
It's not gonna help you so much, because it's the same thing like my wife. My wife, if she's not gonna get the lift, it doesn't come off the floor. But for me, I explode real quick to my knees in the deadlift, and then I slow down, and then that's where I'll get stuck, like getting like my hips through. Well, actually, further up than my knee, probably about further up my knee, because I have the problem where I'll wind up hitching it a lot.
Yeah.
I don't have that drive through my hips. And
Strongman, you can actually get away with. You're allowed to hitch.
Yeah. So I have to really focus on not hitching it. And but the chains and the bands, they give me that strength there that I can pull it up without hitching it, because with the chains are 51 pounds each. So that's adding 100 pounds. I don't know. I don't know how much these blue bands are at the top. It feels like 1,000,000 pounds. So but I would never be able to get that off the floor. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I like old school people are like, oh, you got to do rack pulls, right? But when I get set up for the rack pulls, I'm in perfect form. You know, like I when it's just I don't know in my head it just I mean it doesn't translate. I know it doesn't translate because I can load the bar on the rack up with a million plates and then do rack pulls with it, but it doesn't help because it's I'm not in the same shitty form basically that I would be when I'm deadlifting. That's just
Yeah.
what it is. If I had beautiful form like my wife, you watch my wife pull. I mean, she's like a deadlift robot. It's incredible. Like I'm not a deadlift robot. I just I got crappy. I just
Neither am I. Definitely deadlift is the one thing I'm constantly adjusting. So my competition is that coming up this Saturday. It's a 14-inch deadlift, and again, Mina, on top of just having the belt up, I've always been a fairly wide, not super wide, but fairly wide deadlifter. Like my rings would be on the rings of the bars. Is the way I would say it, and my legs would be wider than shoulder width. Now with the 14-inch or even anything higher, like an 18-inch, which I did in a few competitions back, I actually brought my legs pretty narrow, at least for me, but narrow for a lot of people, and very close in, which also allowed me to lean back more, especially with the belt. And I pulled a lot stronger. But if I went to a regular 9-inch deadlift, the normal deadlift height, I definitely could not do that. I would not be able to get my knees in between my arms. I have to go wider. And just because I've been training for this upcoming competition, I haven't really done a regular deadlift in probably a few weeks. The
yeah.
one after that will be a regular deadlift.
Yeah, June 13th, I'm going to a competition, and when you get this close to a competition, you can't change the game plan. You know what I mean? Like I'm set. Like I'm pulling with my deadlift form the way it is. But after that, I'm going a little wider. I'm sitting a little back further into it, and I'm just reworking it from the beginning. I'm just, I can't pull like this anymore. I've gotten too old.
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, mirrors. You mentioned mirrors in the gyms. People, right, looking in the mirrors at the gyms. Are you pro or con mirrors in the gym?
Oh, definitely pro. Now it's not like if I don't have a mirror, I can't lift. Um, but it helps. It gives me something else to focus. Even when I'm squatting, I can have 600 pounds on my back. I am looking at my legs to make sure I'm parallel as I'm doing it. I'm looking up. I'm looking at something behind me. I'm looking at a hottie toddy or something just to kind of take my focus off. So it definitely helps. The thing I would say I would need it more than anything is when I'm doing curls. I'm always trying to make sure I am having the best form possible. It's not something you can do when you're looking straight. I always have to look to the side or at least like on a 45-degree angle if I can.
Well, I know everyone I talk to who started lifting like late 70s, apparently there were no mirrors in the gyms in the 70s, and there were no music in the gyms in the 70s, from what everyone's telling me, and they hate it. These old guys, man, they're so irritated by it. But I don't care because my son, he's a great squatter. He's just naturally formed. Boom, he's just really good. The bench, he's great. The deadlift, he just does not know where his back is. I'm like, straighten out. Then he hyperextends. I'm like, no, you're hyperextending. Then and now he's hunching over. And I'm like, he can't. And if he could see it, so what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to stick the computer in front of his face, and I'm going to take the phone and zoom it so that he can see. Because you have to look sideways normally. Now he's going to see it front on the side of his back.
Good idea. Yeah, that definitely will help.
That's
give him some perspective.
Well, it's going on record right now today that's my invention. That, and you know what I thought was my invention? The reverse benches with bands. And then I found someone else doing it. yeah, I string up the bench with bands, so the bench is like hanging. You know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about? And I pull it in, and it helps so much with like my uh just when you're benching all the time, your shoulders are coming forward, and yeah,
Yeah.
oh, it feels so good. But I thought it was my invention, but apparently someone else thought of it first.
I've actually done something similar like that, not necessarily hanging with bands, but I essentially what it is just a reverse push-up. So you just grab onto like a Smith machine or whatever, a bar that can't be moved, and you're
Yeah,
basically pulling into it. It's kind of the same concept. You can add weight to yourself or something.
it does. It feels good, right? It makes you, I don't know, like
It does actually. It loosens me up quite a bit.
yeah. I
Yeah.
like doing it right after I bench too. It just like just hold it for a couple seconds. Anytime I feel like, oh no, is that tendonitis? I bang a couple of those out and straighten.
What helps me actually is, I mean, I always do rear delts and I do pec flies on one of the cable machines or whatever machine's available really before I do any type of pressing, and that has made the biggest difference for me with the less risk of actually hurting myself.
Yeah.
You know, whether I get the set or not, I know I'm not going to hurt myself since doing this. Then in between sets, I'll grab a 45-pound plate in each hand, just hold them down to my side, let the weight pull my arms out a little bit, let the tension out, and it kind of loosens everything up again and just gets me primed for the next set, especially if I'm going heavier.
All right. So when you go into the world's strongest man competition, what's your goal?
So, the competition, funny enough, actually, that's going to be coming up this Saturday. It's actually world's strongest manatee. It's in Manatee County, hence the name. It's actually right down the road from where World's Strongest Man was 2 years ago. And I got one. I got the Space Coast competition. I'm sorry, Miami's Baddest, April 3rd. Space Coast, April 24th, and then United States Strongman Nationals, June 5th in Minneapolis. After that, it's Europa, but in between, the online registration actually opens up for the November official Strongman Games. That will be the official start of the road to World's Strongest Man. So once, if I get accepted into that, I believe it's top three, then goes to Giants Live. I believe there's like 5 or 6 of those throughout the year, and I can compete into whichever Giants Live I need to, and then top 2 of Giants Live then is to World's Strongest Man.
All right. Well, you're gonna keep.
That's the focus for that. My plan was to already be on that road, but 2020 kind of ruined that for a lot of us.
Yeah.
So.
Are you gonna keep posting all your competition stuff on your Instagram so we can follow you?
Absolutely, yeah.
What's your Instagram name?
World's Strongest Dutch American is my Instagram. I have also started a YouTube channel. Bear with me on that because I'm on the newbie side when it comes to YouTube.
What's that? I'm gonna write it down.
It's simple enough. Dutch American Strength.
Dutch American. All right, that is pretty easy. All right.
Yeah, just right now it's a bunch of short videos, and eventually I'll get into the longer stuff as things progress.
Okay. Hey, you know what? Thanks a lot for doing this, because this is basically all powerlifters that are going to watch this and listen to this, and it's really cool to listen to new stuff. I'm actually Monday gonna talk to an arm wrestler.
I actually did that for a while too.
Did you?
I have a team that I'm a part of. It was actually affecting my strongman a little bit. There's a lot of margin for error with arm wrestling. And there's guys that are literally half my size that can run circles around me when it comes to arm wrestling. It's just a whole different kind of strength. The surprisingly thing is one of the most difficult moves, from what I understand, is the King's move. I'm actually really good at. Just because as you're pulling out so far, but because of my strength of my bicep, yeah, I have the stamina to hold it. Outside of that, I've placed in a few competitions locally, just locally stuff, and but it was hurting certain areas that I needed primed for strongman. So I haven't trained with him for quite some time, but I do miss the guys and actually plan on hitting them up sometime soon.
Yeah, follow that guy, Dr. Broom. You just look, you just search through the people that I follow, and he's friends with the Kazmaier. I don't know if Dr. Broom, if he does strongman competitions too, but he's in regards to powerlifting, and
Mhm.
he knows a lot about powerlifting. A lot. I mean, I've been in this for 20 years. My wife's been in this 20 years. I know that he knows a lot about powerlifting. He's a good guy to follow. And hey, man, thanks a lot. Now, so much about strongman. I really am like 100 times more likely I'm gonna try it one day, and it'd be.
It's fun, man. It's fun.
Okay. All right. Well, have a good day. Thanks so much.
Not a problem, man. Appreciate it anytime.
Bye.